Welcome to The Shift Show with Adriana Bucci. Join me every week to learn all about narcissistic abuse recovery, healing from physical and emotional pain after the abuse, and everything else to do with toxic people and how they affect your physical, emotional, and mental health. And no, you are not the crazy one. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Let's get right to it. Welcome to episode number 30 of The Shift Show. In this episode, I had a great interview with Beatrice Kamau. She is just amazing. You can find her on Instagram at the Self-Love Fix. I highly recommend you follow her. Her content is so on point all the time. And she talks a lot about inner child healing. So a bit more about her. She is what she likes to call a registered dietitian by trade and an inner child healing coach by vocation. She chose one and the other chose her. She spent most of her life living passively, letting life happen to her as opposed to letting life happen through and for her. And, you know, as we talk about in our interview, there was a turning point in her life where she started actually asking herself where her need for perfectionism came from. And that was her critical moment. And this is the first time in her life that she actually asked herself about the origins of her behavior instead of blaming herself for it. And that was the beginning of her self-awareness, her transformation, and her inner healing from her childhood wounds and codependency. And now she has a deep and unconditional love for herself, and she is spreading the message about self-love. So let's get right into the interview. I know you're going to love it. Here we go. Hey, Beatrice. Thanks so much for coming on my podcast today.
Hey, Adriana. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. Awesome. Why don't we get started with just give the audience a bit of an idea of who you are, what you do, introduce yourself a little, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, sounds good. My name's Beatrice Kamau, and I'm an inner child healing coach and also the host of the Self-Love Fix podcast. And I help women learn how to move from being codependent and dealing with emotional and narcissistic trauma and moving towards being whole and feeling okay in their bodies, loving themselves and understanding and knowing who they are.
Amazing. We need more of you in the world, honestly. There's so much healing that, you know, people who have dealt with narcissistic trauma and end up with codependency traits and all that, like that they don't even know that they can heal within themselves. Mm-hmm. And life just ends up, you know, when you do that work, when you start doing that inner work, embodying the work and the knowledge from all that healing work, it transforms your life. So thank you so much for doing what you do.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you're in this space too. So needed.
It totally is. And honestly, the more of us out there doing this, the better, because it's an epidemic, honestly. It's crazy how many people have suffered through these types of things and they either don't know it or they don't want to talk about it, and it's like kept hush hush. So honestly, it's amazing that there's so many of us doing this.
Yes, it definitely is hush hush. And a lot of the times people don't know where to go, or because they've been like either gaslighted or told that it's not that big of a deal so much, they just end up believing that what they're going through is just in their head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. It's so sad. Like my goal is just like for the world to know that like you're not crazy. You're not losing your mind. You're a normal person. You're having a normal response to abuse. And you know, it's not right that this happened, and you don't have to beat yourself up for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. So what got you into doing this, if you're comfortable sharing some of your story around that?
Yeah, no, I'm totally comfortable with this. So it started in grad school. I wouldn't say it started in grad school, but it more so manifested in grad school. So backtracking a little before that, in college was when I first of all, let's talk about how amazing it is that in this internet age, there's so much access to things, to knowing things that you probably wouldn't have before that. So Yeah, I remember just Googling one thing and ending up falling in the rabbit hole of, I think, yeah, there is some
The
book
good old rabbit
around,
hole.
yeah, it's the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
some book I think called something about toxic parents or something like that in
Mhm.
college. And it was really generalized. So I totally related to it. But because it was so generalized, I didn't really put the pieces together with what I
Mhm.
actually went through in my own childhood. So fast forward to grad school was when I had a moment of like awareness where my perfectionism kind of jumped out
Oh, wow.
because my program was so difficult and criticism just knocked me, like it just, I
Mhm.
couldn't go on. And I had a moment of awareness where I was like, where did you learn this? Why are you doing this? Instead of attacking myself for being, not having it together. And
Mhm.
so once I realized it was like a perfectionism thing, I Googled it, and then I came across this idea of narcissism. And I was like, what's that? And so, well, here we are now.
Yeah.
Here we are now. Yeah. So it was just a lot of me just trying to help myself get through grad school. My original intention was literally just to get through grad school in one piece.
Mhm.
Um, because I was in and out of the ER,
Oh,
honestly,
wow.
because of the anxiety.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, yeah, it was pretty awful. So the intention was just to
Wow.
make it through. I had no idea it was going to open up this Pandora box of, uh, my childhood
Mhm.
and myself.
Mhm. Wow,
Yeah.
that's wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And this
Hmm.
moment of awareness that you had, did it just kind of come out of nowhere, or did something like trigger it? Or was it just all the stress of being in grad school?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I had a preceptor, what you call a preceptor. So somebody who is watching what you're doing in your rotations and kind of guiding you through the ropes.
Mhm.
I was going to grad school for, well, okay, it was a combined program where it was what you call a dietetic internship to become a registered dietitian. And then
Awesome.
also, yeah, the grad school part of it was for, what you call a master's of family and consumer sciences. I won't get into all of that, but yeah, just some background info. So
Yeah.
there was a lot going on.
Mhm.
But for the registered dietitian portion of it, that's where I had the preceptor. And so people were watching how I was conducting myself.
Mhm.
So one of the preceptors was kind of letting me know, hey, I get that you're a beginner and everything, but this is kind of where you're at. You're kind of a little bit more behind. But she
Mhm.
was constructively criticizing me, all in all.
Right.
It was not like
She wasn't like
harsh
putting
at
you
all.
down. Yeah.
But no, she was just telling me what she was observing.
Right.
But if you, and I'm sure you can relate, like growing up in a home where you are constantly criticized,
Yep.
any form of criticism literally feels like the world is ending.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Totally
So
relate. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So at the time I was crying. I couldn't
Oh.
get it together because it felt, I heard it as you're not good enough, not,
Right.
oh, this is what's going on with this particular moment in this
Right.
particular instance. Yeah. So the awareness, sorry, I feel like I got a little
No,
long-winded
no.
with what you were asking me, but basically that was the situation. And the awareness was like, why are you being so perfectionistic about this? Where's it
Mhm.
coming from?
Wow, amazing. So it's like
Yeah.
that constructive criticism, even though it wasn't an attack, it felt like an attack. And that is what made you
Hmm.
ultimately question, like, why why do I care so much about doing everything so perfectly? So that's amazing, right? Like, we tend to run away from triggers and like hate triggers so much, but sometimes
Hmm.
we can actually use them to look within, and that's so amazing that you did that.
Yes, it was totally something I'd never done before. And so I was
Mhm.
like, well, let's go with this. Yeah, where did this come from? Because I never did that before. So yeah, it was pivotal.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm so glad that, that happened. As much as that situation sucked in the moment, it's like,
Mhm.
that took you down that rabbit hole on Google, which
Yeah.
I think we've all been down.
Yeah, it took me down it and it helped propel me forward into really working through instead of, blaming, either blaming myself or
Mhm.
blaming everyone around me. And when I say blaming everyone around me, I mean carrying this story like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm always going to be this way. Everything's wrong with me,
Right.
and people are showing me this.
And it's their fault.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Instead of carrying that story, that experience took me towards, let's backtrack and let's work through what happened. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
did you get here?
Right. That's so empowering
Yeah.
and so amazing. And, you know, a lot of the times when we do go down that rabbit hole, we do tend to get into that like victim mode, which is totally normal. You know, like I'm not bashing anyone who does that because it's like a very eye-opening thing that happens. And it's like, holy crap, I've been conditioned.
Yeah.
Holy crap. And then you kind of feel like you're just going to stay stuck and conditioned like forever. But, you know, you ended up actually looking into it and looking within instead of just sticking with that narrative. And I think that's so empowering and so amazing. And, you know, that's ultimately, I guess, what led you to being a coach in the end.
Yeah. Thank you. And yes, that's what led me to it, because like I was saying, I was just trying to get through my
Mm-hmm.
program, but then it ended up being that along the way, I learned so many tools. I learned so much about what exactly is trauma, what exactly did I go through, what exactly happens with narcissism, what exactly happens with codependency, how do you work through it. I learned all these things, and then eventually I was like, there's no way I can just keep this to myself. When I know how I got from A to B, I
Mm-hmm.
have to help people do this if I can.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Yeah.
And you are like
Yeah.
your content is so like every post you put on Instagram, I'm like, yes. Every time. Like you're so on point. And honestly, just like the way you explain like in your lives and your podcast, it's just so like so honest and real and empowering. And I love that. Like it's so amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. So what would you say is like the number one thing that you, I guess, kind of learned from, you know, going down that rabbit hole and, you know, eventually doing the healing work? What was like the biggest thing that stuck out to you?
So the biggest thing that stuck out to me, and it's funny because I was thinking about this yesterday too. Um, it was that validating what I went through was really the key to
Mm-hmm.
begin a lot of, to move me forward. So going back to what I was saying about in college, like I learned about some of this stuff about like, you know, toxic family members, or, growing up in an abusive environment.
Mm-hmm.
But the piece that was missing was me being able to validate for myself that it really happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that without the validation, I kept, I don't know how to explain it. It's like I kept staying in this thing of like, no, it's not really real. It's all
Mm-hmm.
in my head.
Yeah,
And
you
I was
gaslight
stuck.
yourself.
Yeah, basically gaslighting myself. And it takes a while. And I think you would agree too, that it takes a while to get to that place where you can validate
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Um, and you definitely need outside help a lot of the times,
Mm-hmm.
because you're so used to, not validating yourself. But that's really what it was for
Yeah,
me.
it's so true. And that validation can be so important for survivors because, especially if you're in that dynamic with your family, you have toxic parents, toxic family members, narcissists left, right, and center all around
Mhm.
you. It's you
Mhm.
start to kind of, you, I mean, it's not like you start, you've always believed that you're wrong, you're
Mhm.
dramatic, you're, you know, reading into it too much or whatever, and you can't get that support from family because they're literally the ones who are inflicting that kind of abuse on you.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get That's such a good point for that you just made,
Mm-hmm.
because if you go back to them trying to explain to them a lot of the times, or explain to them what you're experiencing,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the times it will
Just not
make
going to
it
go well.
it's not going to go well. And also oh my god, it's just not going to go well. That's the end of the story. Like it's just not going to go well. It's like trying to put apples and oranges together. They're two
Yeah.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
two
It's like
different.
talking to a wall, but that
Yeah,
wall is abusing you.
it's basically like talking to a wall. And I think that's part of the hardest um part for survivors is finding where is that place that I can go to, that safe place where I will be mirrored back what I'm actually experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It won't be from the people that did it to you,
God,
though.
no.
No, it won't be.
God, no. And it's so tempting to, when you first find out about it, to want to say, like, this is how you hurt me. This is what you did to me. This is what's unacceptable about your behavior. But, the reality is they don't care.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and they can't care. Like, they only care about themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And I would also even say that they just don't have the ability to understand
Exactly.
either. Yeah.
Exactly.
Where you're coming from.
Exactly. It's a complete inability to desire to understand,
Mm-hmm.
to care, and just empathize. Like, they just completely lack it altogether. So trying to go to them for validation is only going to keep you confused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will definitely keep you. Oh my gosh, it'll have you like squelching whatever it is that whatever hope it is that you
Mm-hmm.
had for yourself or belief that you had about your truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So how did speaking to somebody else end up helping you with the validation?
Yeah, I think definitely when it came to therapy and coaching, like I just having somebody be like, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I I totally get you. Having somebody say that was like a breath of fresh air. It was nice to know that I could go to that person weekly or monthly or however how long I had with them, and knowing that this person wasn't going to switch on me or wasn't
Mm-hmm.
going to invalidate what I had to say. They were just there to just reflect what I had to say. That
Mm-hmm.
was what I needed in the beginning to
Yes.
just get started. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so valuable, just having that neutral person who doesn't know you, doesn't know your family or anything like that, just literally saying, yeah, that's abuse. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
messed up. Yes, you went through that.
Yes, it was nice to have someone not be like, well, I mean, I feel like everybody does play a role in whatever situation that they're in. But when we're
Mhm.
talking, I think specifically about narcissistic abuse recovery,
Mhm.
it can be really difficult when somebody says something like that when you are right in the beginning of
Yeah.
you're not even understanding. I mean, not understand. You're not even clear on, did this really happen to me?
Mhm.
So in my case, I had a really good experience where I didn't have that, what role did you play? Or are you sure? That
Mhm.
kind of thing. I never
Yeah.
had that. So that was
That's
really good
amazing.
for me.
That's
Yeah.
lucky. That is
Yeah. I was
lucky.
going to say it's probably lucky because I know a lot of people have people question
Yep.
their experience. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I totally went through that myself, where I was invalidated by like professionals. So it was
Oh
just,
no.
yeah, it just literally kept me in this loop of like thinking something was wrong with me. So that's so awesome that like you got that validation right away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That must have been tough. Yeah. It's just important. It's so important to make sure whoever you go to that they, at the minimum, they're validating
Exactly.
what you have to say.
Exactly. And there's no wrong person to go to either,
Yeah.
right? Like therapy is amazing, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Coaching is amazing, and sometimes doing both at the same time can be a really great way to like really fast track that healing. But therapy is great, when
Yes.
you have one that actually understands narcissistic abuse, and they
Yes.
can validate your experience that way. So I'm
Yes.
not bashing any professionals at all. It's just, there are some out there that, in my case that's what happened, but in a lot of cases there's amazing professionals out there who know exactly how to validate you and know exactly what's going on and can empathize and can give you that support that you truly need.
Yes. Lots of amazing professionals. I would agree too.
Yeah. So yeah, like your Instagram is the Self-Love Fix, your podcast is called the Self-Love Fix. So, the healing process, it revolves a lot around figuring out how to have that self-love. And how did you kind of like figure that out? And embody that?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. I think, originally I didn't even realize that I had a self-love issue or that it wasn't present. If you would have asked me actually a couple years ago, I would have told you, yeah, I love myself. I think it goes back to like that, do you know versus like, do you kind of like show it or embody it kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing? And I would have said, yeah, no, I love myself. Uh, I think when it comes to self-love, I just realized along the way with learning how to have compassion towards yourself and reparenting yourself and all these kind of things, I realized, wait, somewhere along the way, I had a moment where I was like, is this what love looks like? Because at that
Mm-hmm.
point, I had never been in love or experienced it family wise. So I was
Right.
like, this must be what it's like for somebody to love you or to experience love for yourself if you're
Mm-hmm.
showing up for yourself even on your bad days, if you're being gentle with yourself even when you're having your little mini, I don't know, almost tantrums, like because
Mm-hmm.
you're just having you're having a bad day or nothing's going your way or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I had been holding space for myself continuously. I had never, I don't want to say I had never, but I really had made it a point to not chastise myself the way I had been chastised when I was a child, or
Mm-hmm.
the whole time I was almost hand holding myself like a proper parent would to their
Mm-hmm.
child. And so I realized, wow, this must be what it's like when people when people love themselves, or people who grew up in homes where they were loved. And then I realized that was like the key to it. That's what was
Mm-hmm.
missing. Um, and I think that's what a lot of people who are codependent uh, have trouble with. And we
Mm-hmm.
know this because how codependency manifests is that you put up with people who don't treat you right, or you put up with people who don't hold your boundaries. You don't know why, but you do it.
Right.
Or you put up with people who just I don't know, they're just rude to you, mean to you, all the things,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't make that connection. And I think so. A lot of the times, it's the self love that's
Yes.
missing.
I love that. Yeah, it's so true. And I don't know if your experience was similar to mine, but when I realized like, oh my, like while doing the work and, eventually embodying the work, figuring out like, oh, this is self-love. And it
Mm-hmm.
just kind of crept up on me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like this big thing. It was just like this very gentle creep up, I guess you could say, where it's like, hey, guess what? You do love yourself after all. But it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like this grand gesture or whatever. Because I think when we have these codependent traits, when we've, been in narcissistic families and relationships and all that, we equate love with like this just big grand gesture because,
Mm-hmm.
that's the love bombing. So realizing that you're not love bombing yourself, but just actually loving yourself
Mm-hmm.
is, it can be so subtle and so
Yeah.
like you're not even aware of it, but you're just kind of like embodying it without knowing, if that makes any sense.
No, I think that does make a lot of sense, especially with the grand gesture. That's how I felt too. Like, I felt like, oh, somebody should be, I don't know, going out on a limb on date number one. And you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Having a bouquet of roses before you even
Right.
practically know me. like I
Right.
definitely, yeah, I thought it was all of these external, outward, I don't know, just outrageous things. Not outrageous, but just
Yeah.
like you said, like big gestures.
Yeah, Disney messed us up.
Yeah, I definitely would say that. It's like you're looking on the outside for all these big things when really it is really subtle, and you
Mm-hmm.
can look to yourself for that blueprint. Um, it it exists within you. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
learned. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Totally. I love it. And yeah, you had an amazing post the other day about, knowing that you have self-worth versus embodying that you have
Mhm.
self-worth. And I just found that to be so powerful because it's like, you can know and you can be aware of, whatever it is. So like self-worth, obviously, in this example that, you have it. But when you actually embody it, it's a totally different story. Like understanding something intellectually versus being it and demonstrating it and showing up for yourself is like two completely different things.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, and that post that I made was inspired by, oh my gosh, I feel like I've been going on a little tirade for the past week about this, but the post that I made was inspired by, like, you know, me seeing in the self-love space a lot of people saying know your worth, or even in the dating space you might come across this a lot. Um, and when I would say like high school, college, and I heard that phrase, I just remember thinking to myself, yeah, but then what? Like, know your worth, and
Exactly.
then what? You know what I mean?
Right? Like, what does this mean?
Yeah, what does this mean? Like, I remember thinking, like, you guys keep telling me this, and I don't. It's one, I either don't know it, or I feel like I do, but it's not translating. So what's going on here? So yeah, I think that the embodiment is really what happens when you it's an outward or a manifestation of what's already going on inside. So when you're talking about, and I think earlier you were talking about doing the work, um, or the inner work, and over time, as you're spending time doing that, it naturally starts coming out. And I think the embodiment, you know, it looks like the boundaries. It looks like it's an outward manifestation. Yeah.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
I hear you. Like, I totally remember too, like high school, during university and all that. I'm just like, okay, yeah, know your worth. Yeah, cool. I know my worth. And then what's funny is that kind of like, I guess I didn't get it, first of all.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? And then when you get love bombed, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is my worth.
Yeah. Wait, yeah. You couldn't have said it any better. You could not have said it better. That was, oh my, when I was in college, dating in college, that was me all the way. I was like, yeah, that's right. I know my worth. That's why this guy is telling me that he can see himself with me on minute number 3 of talking to him. Like, you know, like, and of course we don't know these, we don't learn these things, right? If we grew up in a home where it was mirrored to us that, hey, you should, somebody doesn't have to tell you right out the gate what they feel when they don't even know you. Let them actually get to know you before they decide how they feel about you or how they want to proceed with you. We don't learn that. We're just clinging to whatever looks like something we never had, which is that love.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So true. It is so freaking true. Like, you're just clinging on to something and you don't even know what it is, but you want it.
You don't even know. You're just like, anything has to be better. Because I feel like anybody who's codependent can relate to just this feeling of anything has to be better than this feeling of loneliness or this feeling of not being enough. So if I could get a little bit of attention or a little bit of anything, it has to be better. I feel like it's the feeling. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you get that and it's like, yep, this is my worth.
And then when they leave,
then
you're like feeling 10 times worse than you were before that. It's just like, yeah. And that's why when I was saying about the knowing your worth versus the embodying your worth, it's like knowing your worth is just going to keep you, I think, on this little hamster wheel, because it's one thing to know, and it's another thing to integrate and to embody by really looking inward and working through those wounds that you have. Because as you work through them, you start to have a lot more appreciation and a lot more concern for your own well-being and what comes into your space. And so naturally you want that to reflect to other people.
Exactly. Totally. And it does take work. Like, it's not, there's no easy way to embody self-love or to even realize if you have self-love without actually, you know, making that choice to realize. I mean, realizing can sort of be a choice sometimes, but not really, depending how in the right, like if you're in like that cyclone of BS that is narcissistic abuse, you don't necessarily realize anything until you're like separated from it. But once you do realize that, you can actually make the choice to decide whether you want to stay where you are and
Mm-hmm.
continue repeating the cycles and patterns and behaviors that led you to this moment, or you can actually look
Mm-hmm.
within and kind of do that digging, do that sort of soul searching, whatever you want to call it, that inner work, you know, figuring out your repressed emotions, all that kind of stuff. And that also in itself takes acknowledging that you have wounds to work on,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yes.
and sometimes it's like your pride just kind of gets in the way, and, you know, there's all these attitudes of like, know your worth or don't let it bother you and blah, blah, blah. But, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's not about that. It's about like, you know, putting your pride to the side for, you know, a minute and realizing, okay, I am wounded, but
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that I am a victim. It just
Mm-hmm.
means that this is something I can work on.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. I would agree. It's recognizing the wounds. I think that's like the first step
Mm-hmm.
is because then it just comes to your awareness. If you
Mm-hmm.
recognize the wounds, then it comes to your awareness. If you don't, well, it's maybe just not in your awareness or
Mm-hmm.
you're not ready to. There's lots of
Mm-hmm.
things that could be going on. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, like the pattern will unfortunately repeat until
Mm-hmm.
you bring it into your awareness. And
Yeah.
that's the hard part.
That is the hard part. I think, and also I think with what you're saying about the pattern repeating, definitely I think a lot goes on when we're talking about doing this inner work. And one big thing is, yes, recognizing what has happened to you, what's been done, all the things you went through and validating it. And then there's also that piece of recognizing what you, I wouldn't say like what role you played. That's not how I would say. I would
Mm-hmm.
rather say, what was what's going on within you too, like
Right.
as you're responding to the situation, how are you feeling in relation to the situation,
Right.
that and how did that show up.
Yeah.
I think when you put that into your awareness too, that so much transformation happens. How did you show up like in those situations?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, you know, like you do have to, because it's not the abuse is never your fault. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not, you didn't choose, you know, some people say like, oh, we chose this life and these challenges, but like, no. You don't, no
Mm-hmm.
child ever chooses like in the void before they're born, like
In the void.
you know, like I'm specifically choosing these parents so I can be abused. Like it's not, you know, it's never your
Yeah.
fault. It's, you know, you just happen to be born to these people, to this family, whatever, and that's where the pattern starts. And
Yeah.
it sucks. It really does suck, but it becomes your normal. It becomes your sense of normalcy, and
Mhm.
that is the role that you play in having these situations continue to happen like as a pattern throughout your life. So then you end up
Mhm.
dating people who, you know, they go through that whole cycle of narcissistic abuse, and then, you know, you think, okay, the next one's going to be it, the next one's going to be it. But at some point you have to question,
Mhm.
like, why do I accept this? And the answer is usually from childhood, because this is how I learned that this is how I should be treated.
Right.
And I accept this because that's what I'm used to. And that's
Mhm.
okay to come to that realization.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. It's like it's basically like your childhood provided the framework for
Right.
how you go about dating people, the friends you choose. It's not like you choose to. It's not like you consciously are like, yes, I want to be
Mhm.
in an abusive
Yeah,
relationship, or like, yes,
exactly.
I don't want my friends to treat me right. Nobody's actually saying that.
Exactly.
But the framework that you had was, you know what, accept how people, or accept when people treat you badly,
Mhm.
accept these things. And so you end up you end up you I'm sorry, you end up just kind of going along with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not because you choose abuse, basically, to summarize what you already said.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Like it's never, ever, ever consciously or unconsciously your choice.
Yes, I agree. And actually going back to what you were saying earlier about,
Mhm.
being in the void and choosing the experience or choosing to be immersed in the abusive
Mhm.
experience with your parents. I've heard that. I think even in the spiritual space, that's something
Mhm.
that comes up a lot, is that you kind of everything's predestined, which is, that's another situation,
Yeah.
another conversation for
Yeah.
another day. But I do, yeah, because that's, those are spiritual concepts. But I definitely can understand the idea of choosing certain experiences to make you, or not to make you, but to shape you
Right.
and into being more in alignment with yourself. But it never really sat well with me, this idea that you chose specifically to be an abusive family in order
Mhm.
to uh, come to that conclusion about yourself.
Yeah.
I uh, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's something about it. When I read it in a book. I just said, I can take everything else you said because I like it, but
Mhm.
this part, something's off. And I don't know
Exactly.
about you, but like, yeah, I find that a lot of the people who back this what do you call it, belief, didn't grow up in abusive homes.
Right.
I don't know how you feel about the situation, but I
Oh, I
found that,
couldn't agree
yeah.
more. Yeah. Like I could not agree more with you. That I've seen, I've seen it like on, Instagram, like social media, stuff like that, where like people will just say like, oh yeah, it is in the spiritual community. And yeah, this is totally
Mm,
another topic as well. Like maybe
yeah,
we'll do another episode on this. But
yeah,
there's a lot of spiritual concepts that are great and, amazing for healing and stuff. But when it comes down to you chose this experience, you chose your parents, and that's why you're going through this, like it almost makes me want to just like throw up a little bit, because it's just like it's not, I don't see any reason
yeah,
why, like your soul would have to evolve by going through like literal hell. Like it just doesn't make
yeah.
any sense to me. And it's almost a form of like victim blaming that,
Ah,
it's
yeah,
just, it's like, well, you chose this and now you can heal from it, and that's the ultimate lesson. But I don't think that, there doesn't have to be a lesson from abuse. It's
yeah.
I don't think that we chose this at all. I just think that concept's complete garbage.
Yeah, I just can't, again, it just doesn't sit well, this idea that somebody would, ugh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like when you think about like, other horrible circumstances in the world, like you can't tell me that like
Mm,
children in like, Yemen and like, countries where like there's horrible crap happening chose that
yeah,
reality for themselves, like there's no
yeah,
way that a child chooses to be born in a situation where there's extreme poverty, wars, stuff like that.
yes. Or
So
even physical, like if the abuse was physical as a child.
exactly.
That's when it just leads to one thing, one question and another about, it just is, I don't get it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Basically, I don't get it.
I
Yeah.
don't get it either. I don't get it. The way I see it is like the world's a mess. The world's basically a disaster,
Yeah.
and we don't choose it. We don't choose to be born into whatever we've been born into, whether that's, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, countries where like situations are really horrible and dire. Like that's never a choice. It just kind of is the circumstance you find yourself in. And
Mm,
just to that suggestion that we choose it, it's just kind of
mm.
nauseating.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it would be better for us to put our focus more on, well, now that I'm here,
Hmm.
what am I going to do going forward, as opposed to
Exactly.
like trying to, again, what you were saying about like the victim blaming and, trying to find out, forget about it. Like, just don't even worry about it. Just
Hmm.
focus on you're here now. And like, how do you want your life to look like going forward? That's what's going to be the most
Exactly.
helpful for you, I feel like.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly. Because it's kind of dangerous to have that mentality of like, oh, well, I chose this and this is my destiny. And then you just don't even do anything about it. Right. And that's
Yeah.
super disempowering in itself.
Yeah. You don't want to end up getting there either. It's just, ugh. Yeah.
Yeah. Could not agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like thanks so much for, sharing your
Mhm.
wisdom with everyone here. This has been such an amazing conversation. Do you have any like final words of wisdom or anything like that for the listeners?
Yeah, I would just say, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's so important to validate yourself in your
Mhm.
experiences, and also know that if you're having trouble doing that, that's pretty normal. Given the way you grew up or the kind of relationships you have been in, and that know that it's okay to get help if you need it, whatever form of help that looks like for you, um, to help support you.
Mhm.
So I would say, and you're not crazy. Also, you're also not crazy. That's the
Mhm.
most important thing to remember.
Yes.
Yeah, and this was really, really great. I was so glad to be here.
Yay.
Yeah, and you can find me over at the Self Love Fix.
Yes, please tell us
And
all the info on how we can find you, and I will have everything linked in the description as well. So let us know like what's your website, your Instagram? How can people
yeah,
get in
so
touch with you?
yeah, definitely. So you can find me at the Self Love Fix on Instagram, and my website's beatricekamau.com. And I actually have a free guide on toxic shame and the inner critic and low self-esteem. So if that's
Amazing.
something you're interested in, / free guide, and you can get your free guide.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, we'll put the link to that as well because that sounds so awesome. And I think so many people will benefit from reading that guide. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for having that.
Thank you. Yeah, this was such an awesome interview.
Thank you. I think this was like one of my favorite podcast episodes. Like we had such an amazing conversation and I think this is going to help so many people. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, for being here and, just sharing your story. It's so amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk soon. See you later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.